On New Year's Eve, Grace abandoned me, suffering a sudden heart attack, on the side of the road because her male assistant wanted to see fireworks. Her male assistant poured my life-saving medication into the dirty water on the side of the road, humiliating me by making me swallow it. Grace knew I had a phobia of dirt, but she didn't stop him. Instead, she watched me drink the dirty water and take the medicine, sneering, "Leo, you're really putting on an act." I just wanted to reward Sean by watching fireworks with him. It's not like I'm going to sleep with him. I don't know what you're getting upset about. A selfish and unromantic man like you deserves a lesson. I'm not going home tonight, so you better not bother Sean and me. I looked at the $1,000,000 fireworks Grace had given to Sean behind me and went home to throw the Christmas dinner I had prepared into the trash. I would never wait for her to come home again. I watched Grace speed away with Sean. I lay on the ground, my mouth full of muddy, dirty water, and then desperately stood up and walked home. After an unknown amount of time, the sound of fireworks suddenly rang out behind me. A group of people said enviously, "That's Miss Grace of Grace Corporation giving her husband $1,000,000 fireworks. I heard they'll last for 5 whole hours. She really spoils her husband." But they didn't know that I was Grace's husband, but these fireworks weren't for me. In my 10-year love affair with Grace, Grace had never watched fireworks with me. She always said with disgust, "Fireworks are noisy and annoying. It's so irritating. Leo, you're not a child anymore. Can't you be less childish?" Grace never knew that I loved fireworks the most because she didn't like them, so I tolerated it again and again. I went home and threw the Christmas dinner off the table into the trash. I would never wait for her to come home again. I called my professor. "Professor, you said last time you wanted to take me abroad for further studies. I've made up my mind. I'll go." The professor said excitedly, "Leo, with your piano talent, you should have been a leader in the music world long ago. Too bad. Too bad I gave up the piano for Grace and promised her that I would never touch the piano again. But I never thought that after marriage, my marriage with Grace would bring me one injury after another." The next day, Grace unexpectedly returned home, but she was furious when she saw that I hadn't prepared Christmas dinner for her. Grace slammed the bag in her hand hard on my head. "Leo, just because I went to watch fireworks with Sean on New Year's Eve, you couldn't even bother to make Christmas dinner." My forehead was bleeding from where she hit me, but she didn't feel sorry at all. "Do I have to beg you to make Christmas dinner before you'll do it?" I looked at Grace, not understanding what she was doing. "Since you're not coming home anyway, what's the point of me making Christmas dinner?" Grace sneered. "Don't you know that girls want a sense of ritual? Even if I don't come home to eat, you still have to prepare the meal and wait for me. You can't even do this little thing well. You're useless. Unlike Sean, he's excellent at everything. He's much better than you good for nothing." But I had given her this sense of ritual for 10 years. Every holiday season, I would prepare expensive gifts and candlelight dinners. But Grace said she was on a diet and scolded me for wasting all these dishes. Now that I didn't make Christmas dinner, she started to blame me. I didn't refute Grace. "Yes, I'm a good-for-nothing." Grace became angry when she saw my indifferent attitude. "Isn't it just that I didn't spend New Year's Eve with you? I've spent it with you so many times, but this is the only time I've spent it with Sean." I sneered and asked, "Grace, have we really ever spent New Year's Eve together? Have we ever had Christmas dinner together?" In the past, Grace always used the excuse that the company was too busy, leaving me alone at home to wait for her. Even though I had a heart condition and couldn't stay up late, I would still wait for her until late at night for Grace's sake. She herself had forgotten that we had never spent New Year's Eve together. Grace was stunned. She seemed to finally remember and said a little guiltily, "Isn't that because the company was too busy? Can't you understand me? I'll definitely be with you next year, so you won't say I don't spend time with you again. But every year, she was at a disco with her friends. After waiting 10 years to spend New Year's Eve together, I no longer hoped that she would be with me at this moment. I didn't talk to Grace anymore and went to the music room to practice the piano and prepare for going abroad, but I found that the music room was a mess. My piano had been scratched with knives. This was the piano my mother bought me with all her savings. After she passed away, this piano became the most important thing to me. Grace walked in and said indifferently, "Sean thought it was fun last time and accidentally broke it." Intentionally scratching it with a knife, is that what she calls accidentally? Moreover, Grace clearly knew how important this piano was to me. I would be furious if anyone other than her touched the piano. Seeing my gloomy expression, Grace said disdainfully, "It's just a broken piano. Sean broke it, so I'll compensate you. Do you have to give me that look?" I opened the piano, and the keys were all damaged. There was a pair of men's underwear on it. Grace quickly grabbed the underwear and said guiltily, "Sean's clothes got dirty last time, so he changed and forgot to take them away. There's nothing between him and me. Don't overthink it." But there was clearly a changing room. Sean's underwear just happened to fall on my piano. Looking at Grace's evasive eyes, I knew that they had even done that kind of thing on my piano. Grace probably felt guilty and a little guilty, so she took my hand to change the subject. "Leo, didn't you have a heart attack yesterday? While I'm home today, let's go for a checkup." To Grace looked like she was doing it for my own good, but she clearly thought I was faking it yesterday and allowed Sean to pour the medicine into the dirty water to humiliate me. Moreover, this was the first time Grace had been so concerned about my heart condition. She always knew that my heart condition was very serious and I couldn't stand stimulation. Whenever my heart felt uncomfortable, Grace would say indifferently, "Isn't it just a heart attack? Just take some medicine. Do you have to act like you're dying?" Then she reluctantly called the emergency number and sarcastically said to the medical staff, "He's just pretending. How serious can a heart attack be? He can't even handle this little bit. Is he even a man?" Grace didn't know that a heart attack could kill you if it wasn't treated in time. Grace took my hand. "Let's go. Let's go to the hospital for a checkup. Your heart condition must be treated in time. Otherwise, what if our baby inherits a heart condition in the future? I'll find someone to get you an expert to treat you. You'll definitely get better." I quickly wanted to refuse Grace. After all, I knew my own body best. I didn't need her to accompany me to the hospital for a checkup this time. "Grace, no need, Before I could finish speaking, Grace's phone rang. Grace quickly picked up the phone and walked away. When she came back, Grace was about to leave again. "The workplace has an emergency. You can go for a checkup yourself this time." After all, as long as Sean called, she would definitely leave. I had tried to keep her before, but she never stayed, and instead hated me even more. My heart suddenly felt a pang of pain. My heart seemed a little uncomfortable again. Grace frowned when she saw me clutching my chest, looking painful. "Leo, can you stop using these tricks to deceive me? Do you think that just because you have a heart condition, I have to revolve around you every day?" After saying that, Grace slammed the door and left. I took the medicine prescribed by the doctor and took a nap before I felt better. When I woke up, I checked my phone and found that Sean had posted a message on his social media. "The female boss is so good. I caught a cold from the wind while watching fireworks last night and had a headache." She immediately rushed to my side. I just found it ridiculous. It turned out that I wasn't even as good as a male assistant in Grace's heart. However, the next second, Grace actually called me. I thought it would be one of her rare moments of concern for me, but she anxiously asked me, "Leo, Sean has a high fever. What medicine should I buy for him? He needs me now, and I don't dare to leave him. That idiot Sean doesn't even have any cold medicine at home. My heart skipped a beat. Grace would actually go to the trouble of buying medicine for Sean. Once, when I had a high fever, Grace not only didn't send me to the hospital, but she said with disgust, "You didn't prepare medicine at home. Now you want me to buy medicine for you. Why didn't you do it earlier? It's so troublesome." But now, Grace didn't blame him at all. She only cared about Sean. Grace continued to ask anxiously, "He's really uncomfortable. Is there any way to relieve it? My heart aches to see him in pain." Grace was afraid that Sean would be wronged. She had never cared about me so much. I just found it ridiculous after so many years of love. "Can't you Google it?" After saying that, I hung up the phone and didn't bother with Grace anymore. However, the next day, Grace called me again early in the morning. She said angrily, "Leo, you're getting bolder. You dare to hang up on me. 3 Now I'm giving you a chance to apologize to me. Come over and cook for Sean right away, and I'll forgive you. By the way, Sean especially likes the sweet and tangy pork ribs you make. Remember to make them." Hearing this, my heart suddenly ached. I finally knew why Grace had become fond of eating the food I brought her for a while, especially the sweet and tangy pork ribs. I thought Grace liked to eat sweet and tangy pork ribs, and my hands were covered in blisters from the oil. It turned out that Sean loved to eat them, so she asked me to make them. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes. "Grace, I'm not your cook. Why don't you ask someone else to make them?" Grace ordered me. "Sean said he wants to eat the ones you make. You have to come today." Grace hung up the phone. I thought about it, took the divorce agreement and went to Sean's house. Some things should end between Grace and me. Sean said to me embarrassedly, "I just suddenly wanted to eat the sweet and tangy pork ribs that Leo makes." I said no need, but Miss Grace insisted on asking you to come and make them for me. Sean's tone was full of Grace's love for him. I ignored Sean and took out an agreement and placed it in front of Grace. "Grace, I'll cook if you sign this." Grace signed it without even looking carefully at what the agreement was. I asked her, "Aren't you afraid it's a divorce agreement?" Grace scoffed, "So what if it is? Is anything more important than making Sean happy? Besides, you're a good-for-nothing. You wouldn't dare to divorce me. Who would want you besides me?" Seeing her indifferent attitude, I didn't say anything and walked into the kitchen to start cooking. This was the last time I would cook for Grace. Grace used to love eating the food I made the most, but I don't know when she started to hate it. The laughter of Grace and Sean in the living room was especially grating to my ears. After cooking, I was so tired that I almost fainted. Grace didn't care when she saw me like that. Instead, she blamed me. "You faint after just cooking a meal. Do you really think you can do nothing just because you have a heart condition?" Sean Eve. "And has to go to the workplace when he has a headache. You stay at home every day. Can you be more hardworking than him?" No matter how much I gave, Grace only saw Sean. Sean came up to support me and said, "Leo, you've worked hard. Your clothes are dirty. Let me take you to the room to change." Sean took me to his room. Dozens of condoms were thrown on the floor. Sean blushed and explained to me, "These are what my girlfriend and I use. I haven't had time to clean them up yet." "Leo, do you and Miss Grace do this too?" My face turned cold. No wonder Sean wanted to take me in to change clothes. It turned out he wanted me to see this. I always thought Grace was too tired from work. It turned out that she simply didn't want to do it with me. Every time I made a request, she would scold me for being disgusting. I looked at the condoms all over the floor and patted him on the shoulder with a sneer. "Sean, you should pay more attention to your health." Sean's face immediately darkened. Back at the dining table, Grace kept putting food on Sean's plate. Sean, you've lost weight from catching a cold recently. Eat more. Sean acted spoiled towards Grace. Ms. Grace, you spoil me too much. How can there be such a good boss like Ms. Grace? Sean put a large spoonful of crab roe in my bowl. Thank you, Leo, for coming to cook for me today. I didn't touch my chopsticks for a long time. Sean cried aggrievedly. Did I make Leo unhappy? Why aren't you eating, Leo? Grace stared at me with a gloomy expression and slapped me hard. Leo, don't be so shameless. Then Grace grabbed my head and forced all the crab roe into my mouth. I didn't even have time to resist. By the time Grace finished all this, I was covered in dense red rashes. Grace had once sworn that she would remember that I was allergic to crab roe and promised not to let me touch crab roe, but now it was her who was feeding me crab roe. Sean's smiling face suddenly turned frightened. Ms. Grace, Leo is so scar. Why, doesn't he have some kind of disease? When Grace saw the red rashes on my body, she twisted me up and locked me out of the door with disgust. Leo, you're so disgusting. Before I could speak, Grace kicked me away. Don't dirty Sean's house. Get out of here quickly. I grabbed the hem of Grace's pants and said breathlessly, Grace, call an ambulance for me, please. However, all I got in response was the sound of the door slamming shut. Fortunately, a kind person sent me to the hospital in time. I went to the front desk to get my medicine alone, but I ran into Grace and Sean. Grace looked at me with disgust. Sean, who was beside her, said to me ostentatiously, I told Miss Grace that it was just a minor injury, but she insisted on bringing me to get it bandaged because she was afraid I would get infected. Grace said with heartache, Is that a minor injury? You were bleeding. But when I had a heart attack, the pain was so painful that Grace didn't know. When Grace saw me, she said unhappily, It's just an allergy. Why are you staying in the hospital for so long? She said as if she was doing me a favor, Forget it, since we're here, I'll reluctantly take you for a checkup. Grace went to register without waiting for me to speak. She left me and Sean together. Sean said mockingly, Miss Grace is so good to you, but if she were really good to you, she wouldn't have watched fireworks with me and stayed at my house. Leo, you can't beat me. The person Miss Grace loves now is me. You're a useless, low-life man. She's long been tired of you. Miss Grace also said that she finds your face disgusting every time she sees it. My mind went blank in an instant. I didn't expect Grace to think of me that way. Sean smiled provocatively at me and slapped himself twice, crying and saying, Leo, I didn't seduce Miss Grace. Please don't hit me. I'll definitely stay far away from Miss Grace in the future and not get in your way. Grace, who had just left, immediately turned round when she heard the crying. When she saw Sean being wronged, she felt so sorry for him that she would give him her life. Grace stared at me fiercely and kicked me in the stomach. Leo, you bully Sean like this when I'm not around. Sean and I are just colleagues. Sure enough, people with a heart of darkness see everything as dirty. I knelt on the ground in pain, and my heart was pounding violently. Grace didn't think that was enough to vent her anger, so she stepped on my back and made me lie on the ground. Leo, apologize to Sean. Sean gave me a smug look. Looking at my embarrassed state, Grace became even more violent and stepped on my hand again. She knew that I studied piano, so how important my hands were to me. In the first few years when we were together, Grace would apply hand lotion to me almost every day to protect my hands. She said, Leo's hands will become the hands of a great pianist in the future. I want to take good care of them. Looking at the feet that were stepped on her feet, I just found it ridiculous. Grace, I didn't bully Sean. There's surveillance here. You can find out if you check it. However, Grace didn't listen to my explanation at all. Instead, she increased the strength under her feet. You mean Sean slandered you? Leo, at least make your lies sound believable. I heard the sound of bones breaking, but I still lowered my head and said to Sean, I'm sorry. Only then did Grace remove her feet with satisfaction. This is just a lesson for you. I won't let you off next time you bully Sean again. Looking at Grace's distant figure, my heart was completely dead. A few days later, I stood outside the airport and left with the professor. Before leaving, I sent Grace one last message. Grace, let's break up. I wish you and Sean a happy marriage for 100 years. 5. Following the professor abroad for further studies was the happiest time of my life. Grace used to hate me playing the piano at home the most, so I rarely I'd the piano at home, for fear of making Grace unhappy. Over time, my desire to play the piano became lower and lower. But this time, I found myself in the sound of the piano again. I found the me who once loved the piano. I was no longer the cautious Leo. Grace once promised me, Leo, don't play the piano anymore. I'll support you in the future. You just need to be my support at home. I believed it, but Grace began to dislike me for being useless and lazy. After a performance, I turned on my phone, which had been turned off, but I found that Grace had only sent me a message a month after I disappeared. Grace, Leo, what do you mean by going on a trip with Sean? How did I get divorced from you? What tricks are you playing again? Stop making trouble and come home. Seeing that I didn't reply for a long time, Grace called me hundreds of times. Answer the phone. Don't be angry. I admit defeat, okay? I bought you a piano. Don't be angry. It's not that I'm ignoring you. I'm contacting experts abroad to treat your heart condition. Please come back, okay? Grace sent me the chat records of her contacting experts for heart disease treatment. Grace called again. I was going to refuse to answer, but I accidentally pressed to answer. Grace's reproachful voice came, Leo, have you had enough? My patience is limited. You better come home quickly. What are you angry about this time just because Sean and I went on a trip for a few days? Sean is an excellent employee of the company. I'm not just accompanying him alone. Grace said matter-of-factly. I sneered, Grace, you're a great boss. Is rewarding excellent employees by sleeping with them? Grace was exposed by me and became angry. Leo, are you jealous, so you started spreading rumors? I sent Grace a few photos. Grace, I've always known. Stop pretending. We're already divorced. Don't look for me anymore. Grace was silent for a while, and then she frantically made up for it. I just made an ordinary little mistake. This is not a reason for you to throw a tantrum. And I cheated. Didn't you think about your own reasons? Isn't it because you're not gentle enough, not considerate enough? I didn't sign any divorce agreement. We can't get divorced. Don't use this method to deceive me. I reminded her, Grace, you said at the beginning that as long as you can cook for Sean, you would sign even a divorce agreement. Grace was lost. No, I was just joking. I thought it was just an ordinary contract. This divorce doesn't count. You can't divorce me. Come back to me quickly. Don't make me come and take you home. You have nothing. I don't believe you really dare to leave me. I hung up Grace's phone directly, but tears streamed down my face. She also knew that I had a heart condition and couldn't be overworked or stimulated, but she made me cook for Sean. Because Sean slapped me, made me eat crab roe and was allergic all over, and broke my hand that I'd practiced piano with. It was clearly her who cheated, but she blamed everything on me. However, I didn't expect Grace to really come abroad to find me. Grace pulled me off the stage in front of everyone. Grace's hands gripped me tightly. Leo, come home with me. What's so good about this broken piano? Can you be successful by playing this broken piano? I'll give you money and feed you well at home. You have to come out and suffer, right? Grace would never understand how important the piano was to me. She rarely gave me a good look in front of outsiders and often scolded me in front of outsiders, making me unable to step down. The people who performed with me looked at me, and the audience below was even more confused. Grace didn't care. She grabbed me tightly. Just as she was about to pull me away, a friend who was traveling with me stood in front of me. Leo doesn't want to leave. Don't touch him. Grace, do you really think we don't know about the bad things you've done? A disgusting woman like you should go to hell. If I were Leo, I would never forgive you in this life. He gave up the piano for you. How did you treat him? Do you know how important the piano is to him? Have you ever supported him in pursuing what he likes? Grace's face turned red from what my junior fellow apprentice said. He's my husband. You're not qualified to judge me and him. Grace looked at me surrounded by junior fellow apprentices. Leo, come here. I took a step forward. The junior fellow apprentice looked at me with disappointment. Leo! I looked at Grace. Can we talk after my performance, okay? Are you coming to listen to my performance? Grace nodded unhappily. Back on stage, the audience applauded after a song ended. Grace looked at me on the stage. She hadn't recovered until everyone had left. Grace once told me that when she first saw me, she was deeply attracted by the way I played the piano. She fell in love with me at that time. I walked to Grace's side and sat down. Grace, it's time for us to end. Grace looked at me affectionately. Leo, we can go back. I won't stop you from playing the piano in the future. Come home with me, okay? I was wrong. I was really wrong. I shook my head and refused Grace. You can go. I don't want to see you. Those injuries she inflicted on me will always be a scar in my heart. Grace grabbed my hand and refused to let go for a long time. Her guilty expression didn't seem like she was pretending. Leo, since you're not leaving here, I'll stay here with you. As she spoke, Grace's phone rang. Grace hung up the phone, but the person kept calling. Grace clicked her tongue impatiently and still answered the phone. Sean's urgent voice came from the other side, making Grace frown. After hanging up the phone, Grace looked at me hesitantly. Sean had a car accident. I sneered. Go back and be with him. Grace looked at me guiltily. Leo, wait for me here. I'll be back to be with you soon. After saying that, Grace left in a hurry. I turned around and submitted my resignation to the professor. I wanted to go to a certain country to be a music teacher. The professor tried to persuade me. That place is very dangerous. You can't risk your life to avoid Grace. I looked at the knuckles that Grace had broken and shook my head. No, I just want to pass on music to those children so that they can have at least a trace of warmth in their painful childhood. And I know you can hear that my skills are not as good as before. I don't want to hold you back either. After hearing what I said, the professor knew that I was determined to go and didn't stop me anymore. In the 3 years I was in that country, I lived every day in a thrilling way. The children there loved my music very much. Music was like a flower of hope in the hearts of those children, bringing hope to their lives. That day, I was walking on the road when a person suddenly called out to me, "Are you Leo?" I looked at that person and remembered that she was Grace's best friend. Grace's best friend looked at me in surprise. Leo, do you know that Grace has been looking for you like crazy these past few years? Over the past few years, I hadn't paid attention to any news about Grace, but I still felt a faint pain in my heart when I occasionally thought of her. Grace's best friend also told me about Sean. After Grace found out that you were gone, she went to the orchestra to find you. She fainted in a hurry. When she woke up in the hospital, Sean lied to her that she was pregnant and that the child was his. I was stunned. I thought Grace was telling the truth when she said Sean had a car accident. It turned out that it was because Grace was pregnant, and the father must have been Sean. But now, none of this was important anymore. She continued, later, Grace found out that she wasn't pregnant at all and that Sean was trying to stop her from looking for you. In a fit of anger, Grace tortured Sean so badly that he was chased by creditors every day. Law. St. time, someone released a video of Sean even fighting with a dog for food. Grace's best friend looked at my expression. She thought I would be very happy, but I wasn't. It was as if all of this had nothing to do with me. Grace's best friend tried to persuade me. I know you hate Grace, but Grace is not doing well now. She calls your name every time she gets drunk. She bought a dozen pianos waiting for you to come back. She's been drinking herself into a stupor every day, hoping you'd return to her. She's been driven mad with torment. Leo, Grace really knows she was wrong. As her best friend, I can't bear to see her like this. I knew she was trying to persuade me to go back to Grace. I shook my head, having seen through it all. I don't want to see her. You don't understand the extent of the damage Grace inflicted on me. If you knew, you'd only think my life was a tragedy because of her. I won't forgive her, not in this lifetime. Seeing my resolute stance, Grace's friend didn't try to persuade me further. She patted me on the shoulder and said, Leo, since you don't want to see her, I won't tell her you're here. I wish you peace and happiness. After Grace's friend left, I started talking about the song Grace and I first encountered. I had already let Grace go. Hearing how deeply she supposedly cared now didn't stir any emotion in me. I just found it laughable. Grace tormenting Sean was like proving that she no longer loved Sean, but loved me. But when I needed her love the most, Grace was nowhere to be found. Our biggest problem was never Sean. Even if there hadn't been Sean, there would have been many women around her. She still would have mistreated me for them. Grace would never remember that I was her husband. Now, putting on this hypocritical act only makes me sick to my stomach. I suddenly received a call from my professor, who told me she had cancer and wanted to see me one last time before she passed. I returned to the States. As soon as I got off the plane, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Leo, you're finally willing to come back. I was shocked by Grace's appearance. The Grace I knew used to be meticulous, not even allowing a speck of dust on her clothes. But now, half her hair was white, her face was haggard, and her clothes were covered in mud. Tears welled up in her eyes, filled with love for me. Leo, I've personally punished that bitch Sean who stirred up trouble between us. Come home with me, okay? Let's go back to the way we were before. I sneered, Grace, there's no way I'm going with you. I came back only to see my music professor. Please don't bother me. Grace clutched the hem of my shirt tightly, saying with some grievance, Leo, why are you always so stubborn? If you weren't so ambitious, I wouldn't have grown to dislike you in the first place. After you became famous for playing the piano, did you ever consider how I felt? They said I got rich off a man, but I myself am an excellent woman. My mind suddenly went blank. So that's what Grace thought of me. Although my family wasn't wealthy, Grace came from an even poorer background. Back then, Grace mentioned wanting to start a business. She told me she didn't have money, but I wanted to help Grace realize her entrepreneurial dreams. I always believed in her. To make money, I participated in many piano competitions during that time, even playing the piano in a thin suit in the freezing winter. Others cursed and humiliated me, but I could only silently endure it. At that time, I was a bit famous in the piano world. As long as someone paid me, I would play the piano. My colleagues scorned my behavior, calling me spineless. But I still managed to scrape together $1 million to give Grace as seed money for her business. At that time, Grace promised me, Leo, I will definitely treat you well in the future. But I never expected that Grace had always thought of me this way. My heart felt like it had been stabbed with a needle. I looked at Grace and felt like she was a stranger. Grace, since that's what you think of me, then I don't think we have anything to talk about. I turned to leave, but Grace grabbed my hand again, saying in a panic, Leo, I was just too impulsive and said those things. Don't take it to heart. Leo, I know I was wrong. Now I just want you to come home with me. I shook off Grace's hand and scoffed, Grace, you're the one who always wanted to get rid of me. You kicked me, suffering from a heart condition, out of the car on New Year's Eve, sent Sean $1 million gift of fireworks, kicked me out of the house and watched me suffocate from allergies, and broke my piano-playing hands. It was all you, Grace. Grace, do you know how painful it is to have a heart attack? Do you know how painful it is to watch the one you love favor another man? Grace, I loved you, but you don't deserve my love. Grace looked at me, seemingly recalling all the pain she had inflicted on me in the past, and shed tears of regret, slapping herself hard. Leo, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I was really an animal before. Leo, hit me, okay? As long as you're willing to forgive me, you can hit me however you want. I will definitely learn to be a good wife in the future. I only love you. Grace knelt on the ground, trying to gain a shred of my sympathy through her pitiful act. But she had many opportunities to keep me. Now, I won't be soft-hearted towards Grace. I looked at her and smiled coldly. Grace, a rotten person like you isn't worth my forgiveness. 9. Grace didn't chase after me that day after I left. I looked at her trembling back as she cried, and suddenly felt very relieved. The me who once loved her had also been hurt so badly by her. But what Grace suffered was far less than 1/10 of the pain I had felt back then. After visiting my professor, I went to the small house I had once bought. Inside was the piano my mother had bought me. I hired a cleaning service every month to clean it, but I was still surprised to see it so clean without a speck of dust. I opened the piano and played a few notes, and found that the sound quality of the piano was surprisingly good. After I sent the piano to the piano shop for repairs, I didn't have time to touch it again. I sat in front of the piano and played my mom's favorite song. As soon as I finished playing, I heard faint applause behind me. I subconsciously turned around and found it was Grace. Grace's expression immediately panicked. Leo, I didn't mean to stalk you. I just... She couldn't say a reason after a long time, looking at me pitifully. I fixed the piano your aunt sent you, and I clean this house every day. Leo, I really have been waiting for you to come back. Looking at the clean house, I immediately understood why it was so clean. It turned out that Grace had been cleaning it. She looked at me with anticipation in her eyes, as if wanting to be praised. A cold wind blew, and my hand cramped up. Grace immediately grabbed my hand and asked with concern, Leo, what's wrong? I pulled my hand back and looked at Grace with a sneer. You have to thank you for this. Grace looked at me with guilt and disbelief. You broke my hand for Sean back then. Every winter when I encounter a cold wind, my hand will ache to the bone. During those years abroad, sometimes the pain was so bad that I even felt like dying. The doctor told me that if I stubbornly continued to play the piano, my hand would probably be ruined. Grace held my hand, and hot tears dripped onto the back of my hand. Leo, I'm sorry. It's all Sean's fault. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have had so many misunderstandings. I sneered, Grace, you have always been the one hurting me, and Sean is just a reason for you to hurt me. Grace cried even harder. Leo, I know I'm sorry for you. Just give me one last chance. There was no way I could stay here. I should go back after seeing my professor. What's more, I knew that as long as I stayed here, Grace would keep harassing me. and now I just wanted to live a peaceful life, and seeing Grace would only bring me more painful memories. I took a taxi to the airport when suddenly a car sped towards me. I couldn't dodge in time, and someone suddenly pushed me away from behind. When I turned around, the person who saved me was hit by the car and sent flying 4 or 5 meters away, and the ground was covered in blood. I walked over trembling. The person who saved me was Grace. She had been behind me all along. Before she closed her eyes, she smiled at me with blood all over her body. "Leo, forgive me, okay?" And the person responsible for the accident in the car was Sean. He was covered in injuries, his hair was messy, and his eyes were full of hatred for me. "Leo, why don't you just die? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have ended up in this situation where my family is ruined. That bitch Grace drove you away and now she's pretending to be affectionate. Do you think Grace loves you? If she really loved you, she wouldn't have cheated." I looked at the frantic Sean, walked straight up to him, and kicked him. "She is the culprit, but you knew she had a husband, and you were still willing to be the third party. Being a mistress will never end well." In the end, Sean was sentenced to 5 years for intentional homicide. Because Grace was in a car accident, I had to stay in the hospital to take care of her. Her family members had gradually passed away over the years, and now I was the only one who could take care of her. After learning that she had only broken her legs and was not in any life-threatening danger, I resolutely left. More than 10 years later, after returning to the States to settle down, I ran into Grace's friend. She told me that Grace had become a nun. After Sean was released from prison, he was tormented to death by Grace in one winter. It was New Year's Eve again, and I climbed to the church, praying to God to bless me with peace and prosperity in the coming year. The bells of New Year's Eve rang, and the fireworks in the sky were brilliant and grand. I looked up and shed tears. And in the corner of the church, a nun looked at the fireworks in the sky, put her hands together and prayed, "May my Leo be safe and happy every year." The end.